to episode 17. Our topic today, metaphysical phenomena and African knowledge systems. So once again, welcome to DWP 2022 season, where our theme for the whole year, whoever controls Africa runs this world. And we are going to talk about the significance of metaphysics in the development of African knowledge systems and how this helps to prepare Africa as the next economic superpower and major cultural phenomena in the rest of this century. So in episode 16, we actually summarized the 12 key principles to guide thinking around African knowledge systems that prepare us for the ascent into greatness. And I'll further sum those up as background to this session. We agreed that the principles start off with viewing the future in terms of industrialization, not as a technical process, but it's a massive transformation of our whole society and its value systems, and why we should not just walk down that path blindly. We better be prepared. We also said that civilization does not mean universal truth. There are many forms of civilization, and that in the world of knowledge and in the spiritual world, there is no majority rule. The majority can be very much wrong, and that we should not always close our minds because the majority is going that way. Options for civilization are limitless, and therefore we should always have limitlessly open minds. And we also agreed that the knowledge system that drives Africa should be based on the three mutualities: guarantee humanity that understands that we're all here only if we're able to guarantee mutual respect of different views and religions and belief systems, mutual benefits, that ultimately we know that there are areas such as an environment and so on where we have to all benefit, including economic growth. And finally, that we are all mutually responsible for our world, for our planet. We also pointed that Western science is very useful for knowledge development, but does not provide the complete thinking process, and that Africans have to reinvent African ways of thinking, including dipping into our metaphysical beliefs as a basis where intuition and other ways of knowing can enrich the limits of science. Science has become another religion. You know, it's just sold as that's the only way to know. And we did point out that education has closed people's minds. Religion, especially doctrinaire religions, close people's minds. Political belief systems close people's minds, and they end up with xenophobia and racism and so on. So open those minds. And we also agreed that COVID-19 has given us that wake-up call in Africa to open the closed minds, because there are limitless solutions out there, there are limitless forms of civilization out there, there are limitless options for experiences and exploration and experiencing and enjoying life. And we should not allow education, religion, and politics that are doctrinaire to close our minds. We cannot decolonize and de-traumatize our minds as Africans and go for greatness with closed minds. And in conclusion, we agreed it doesn't matter what our past has brought us. In the end, all problems and challenges we have are because of an absence of higher thought, a refusal to elevate the intellectual and spiritual game. Our problems are not because of demons and presence of evil or ignorance because you're not educated. It's all a lie. It's just elevating the game. So with that background, let's delve into metaphysical phenomena and African knowledge systems, or how it will assist us. So my name is Mandi Rukuni. I authored this book, Being African, which I'm recommending to you. You stand a chance of winning a copy of this book in the DWP competitions. But I wrote this book primarily because we Africans often confuse Westernization with modernization. So this book goes through what it takes for us to modernize Africa using our heritage rather than Westernizing it. So Wunu, Botu, Ubuntu, Udugu is what this book is about. I recommend it to you highly, and those who want the practical side of how to succeed using heritage values, you can go to the small handbook of African Pathways to Success. Look forward to you participating in the competition. Thank you.
Stand a chance to win a copy of the book, Being African, or the booklet, African Pathways to Success, by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Dialogue with Prof Mandi Rukuni, and leaving a comment on one of our recent videos. You can also like our Facebook page and comment on a recent post. If you're on Instagram, follow the profile Prof Mandi Rukuni and leave a comment on a recent post as well. A random participant will be chosen at the end of the month and will be contacted and given the book.
We're going to go through several facts here before we go into a discussion. Fact number one is that cultural intelligence is a continuous process of crafting ways of knowing, ways of believing, ways of life. And this is how worldviews and beliefs are shaped. So forget the Eurocentric approach to metaphysics, because the Eurocentric principles around how they try to understand things which are not easy to understand is, number one, the creation of a religion where there is God and there is a devil. Forget that. The other thing we have to forget out of Eurocentric metaphysical thinking is that things are black and white. There is absolutism. There is determinism. It's either this or that. It's either you're good or you're bad. No, they absolutely not possible. Everyone and everything is both good and bad. That's how the Creator did it. So I'm saying those are examples of how Eurocentric metaphysical understanding of life has corrupted ways of thinking, even into what people call civilization, because people enjoy higher standards of living. The factories are booming, the banks are booming, you make more money, but you still believe that some people are good, some people are bad. You still actually believe that there's a God and there's a devil. So in African or Afrocentric metaphysical foundations, the Creator is supreme. In other words, the rest is human experience. All that is considered the devil in Eurocentric thinking. In African thinking, these are the multiplicity of lower level spirits which don't in any way compete with the gods, because it was all created by one Creator. So it's there to enlarge and expand the human experience. Secondly, in Afrocentric metaphysical foundations, goodness and badness are not absolute. Everyone can be an angel and anyone can be a devil. It's all relative. There is no absolutism about goodness and badness. Truth is relative. There's no absolute truth on anything. Truth is relative. Truth is transitory. What is true today can be false tomorrow, you know. And truth can be an illusion. What you think it is actually not what it is. It's all there, created to enhance the experience of life. So, yeah, Africans do believe in a more hierarchical structure of beings and spirits, but all created at the apex by the Creator. Fact number two is that answers to our challenges, desires, wishes, all lie within. It's not external. There's no external button to press. We all have to press internal buttons. It's internal in us as humans. It's internal in our families. It's internal in our communities. It's internal in our nations. It's not going to come from some faraway place. Answers lie within. It is great to learn from other cultures. It's great to borrow intelligently from other civilizations. But however, the ultimate way to greatness, the truth that transforms the most, is the one that we discover for ourselves, not told by outsiders. Fact number 3, of course, metaphysics is a way to understand reality, a way to understand being or cosmology. How did all this come through? A way to understand nature. And Africans have had arguably some of the deepest metaphysical discourse than any other culture I know, that figuring out existence, reality, figuring out the meaning of life is not a mechanical process. For Africans, it's ultimately a process of total immersion into life, total immersion into the environment. You cannot limit your knowledge of the environment through laboratory work and experiments. Is living with it and interacting with it so intensely that you begin to observe and experience things that you did not experience before. It cannot be achieved through intellectualization and pontification alone. So immersion is a legitimate process of generating beliefs, of further understanding one's identity, who we are. And that's how Africans arrived at the belief that there's some creator out there who is the highest level being. Mwari in Shona, Musikavan, the creator of beings. Mkulunkulu in Zulu languages or Nguni languages. In Igbo, it's Okaka. In Yoruba, Ududumare. The Akan in Ghana look at this supreme being as Wanyame. So different names across the continent, but the beliefs are very similar. It's about this hierarchy of which the creator is on the top. So the creator, if we go back into contemporary times, because what has happened is what the colonizers did is, once they came to Africa, they translated the Bible into all the local languages. And all they did was the biblical God is then replaced by the local God in the Bible. That was the highest level of spiritual fraud that you can ever find in the world. And that way, Africans blindly, of course, also forced into believing that now some guy out there, somewhere in the Middle East, is the creator, is God, and so on. So the supreme being creates the entire universe. But more importantly for Africans, actually holds dominion and power over both the living and the dead. In other words, for Africans, at the highest level, the living and the dead are all there. The Creator still holds power over them. And the belief in ancestors is very strong in African metaphysics. And I dare say it's borne out even by science, that when one fully understands how one's DNA operates in your system, is the entirety of all your ancestors. They are there in the DNA. That's your ladder from you today back into your mother and father, back into your father's father and mother's father, all the way back to the Creator. The knowledge is captured in that DNA. You don't need to go and pray at the grave or do 101 rituals, you can still use your ancestors right there. They're always with you. They're always there all the time. So Africans also, therefore, believe that there are many other beings in this universe. It can't just be us. This world has been shaped over time, will continue to be shaped over time by all manner of spirits and beings besides us. And that's why we always seek a special relationship with other beings, especially the ones that we see in our own environment. Fact number 4 is that African metaphysical intelligence promotes unity and a sense of belonging in Africans. You know, for Africans, a loss of a sense of belonging or not knowing where you belong is one of the biggest disasters one can go through. I can tell you, for Africans, you could be a multi-billionaire, you could be a celebrity of sorts, but if you don't know who you are, where you come from, what your bloodline is, you got a serious problem. I mean, it is through that Africa then marshal all manner of social relations, and the desire to belong is not a desire to then alienate or to discriminate. Actually, it's a desire that is derived from a belief in oneness, that in the end we're all one. And I am because we are, which is the commonly used term. I am because we are ultimately means that I'm only here because somebody else can see me and bring life to me. I'm only here because you are here. And there's no greater acknowledgement to an African than I can see you. And most greetings in African languages refer to seeing somebody as the way of breathing life, bringing life, acknowledging, and being at one. And I also end this particular fact of oneness and sense of belonging is also captured in those 3 mutualities that I've talked about before, and I'll repeat them again. Mutual respect, mutual benefit, and mutual responsibility. Once those 3 are within a family, a group, a nation, a world, then we're on our way. Fact number 5 is that African metaphysical intelligence is probably equally strong, even stronger, when it comes to harmony with the environment and the world. And it varies from place to place, but if I use my own community and our understanding as I grew up as to the significance of the relationship between the Creator and where we are physically, it always ended up with 4 or so elements. Is the sacredness of the skies that bring us rain and sun and so on, the sacredness of the mountains, where incredible things happen, where rivers emanate from very few trickling sources of water, and end up in big rivers. The mountains, highly sacred places, and the rivers as a source of life, and then the land and the soil. That is where, in African metaphysics, harmony is expected to be maintained in these elements of the environment. In the end, they also operate as one. So Africans, in our mythology as well, in addition to the metaphysics, we have special relationships with the trees, with the rivers and the mountains. And we venerate some of these where we experience sacredness of parts of the environment, and sacredness is found in all those 3-4 areas: in the mountains, in the skies, in the forests. And that sacredness is experienced by people on a day-to-day basis. It's understood by the way experience the impacts on their lives individually and in the community. What happens to the rains, what happens to the weather, and the kind of ills that come through and how they're dealt with. It's immersion, once again, in the environment rather than a detached observation and experiments in the laboratory, and packing the environment into parks and zoos and periodically visiting them. That's the Western solution in an industrialized society. And I dare say that we have to rethink all this in Africa. We cannot have a sustainable civilization where our relationship with the environment is other than detached. So plants and animals play a huge role in the spiritual world of Africans. As a matter of fact, animals and trees do have serious spiritual significance and can exchange knowledge and can exchange communication with human beings because animals and trees, just like human beings, will be able to transmit and receive highly advanced knowledge and information, which goes beyond aspects of health and well-being, but the well-being of society at large. So conservation of some of the species, be they animals, be they trees, is heavily embedded in Africans and their belief systems. And once again, the way it has been developed through not just metaphysical interpretation, but also experience and immersion, is to do with how people are brought up to love and respect these elements of the environment. It is the way in which Africans have conserved rare species, animals, and tree plants that could easily go extinct. It was not through legislation. It was through conscientization. So that I remember even me as a small boy, you're walking in the forests. You have to respect the trees and the animals. But more importantly, the reason why we did not cut trees willy-nilly was not because a policeman was coming to arrest you or somebody would see you and penalize you. It was because your conscience would stop you. Once conscience was once policeman. Now today you go to the same village that I grew up in, everybody does their own thing. They can cut trees, they can damage the environment, and the only thing that can stop them is some environmental agency or some policemen coming to arrest them. And how often does that happen? So we need to accept the fact that Africans and their metaphysical understanding of relations with the environment were extremely advanced. And if we don't bring that conscientization or consciousness approach to the environment back and expect that legislation will do it, I think Africa will go down the tubes, just like the Western world has destroyed its environment and struggles to get it back. So damaging life in general is a high crime in Africa. The way this has been embedded in the consciousness of Africans, as an example, is the way that plants and animals form totems of major clans and groups. I mean, this is all over Africa. I mean, in Southern Africa, where I am in, almost every group has one way or other a totem that is directly or indirectly related to an animal or plant species, or how these are lived side by side with. So, I mean, there are parts of Africa. I mean, I got an example here of Eastern Africa, Baganda region, the Baganda tribe, and other similar tribes, Banyoro and so on. There are hundreds of tree, plant, and animal species which are totemic, and as a result have been beautifully conserved over time, protected through a deeper understanding of a relationship with these animals rather than fear of arrest by policemen. Yeah. So, in conclusion, on this fact, the African metaphysical approach to existence as a whole is closely tied to the environment at large. Fact number 6 is that African metaphysical intelligence promotes good moral behavior. The belief in supernatural forces beyond us, the belief in unseen forces, has helped Africans develop a cultural process which places and instills morality in people. And the fact that Africans don't believe we exist alone here has shaped how we actually then behave. But let me just take a couple of examples of why and how this has shaped morality. Take murder. Murdering somebody, in most of Africa, there was never capital punishment, by the way. In most of Africa, you kill somebody, it was a crime that one was not individually responsible for. It always had to go back to your family and community, which brought you up. And it was very important to address this crime at that level. And whether that crime somehow demanded reparations, and whatever those were well beyond the individual who committed the crime, and there to be some responsibility by the family, and sometimes even the community that brought that individual up. Because Africans, in the end, did not mechanize this thing by just saying, you committed murder, you go to court, either you get some sentence or you're also executed. No. It went back to the families and communities compensating each other and ensuring that murder was a rare phenomenon and not something that's so common now. So common now, even in Africa. I mean, people will get killed for $10. You know, it's unfortunate that we reached that point. Whereas in our metaphysical understanding of the importance of life, people did not kill mainly because the repercussions of killing somebody went beyond the physical process of killing somebody you want to get rid of. It had spiritual implications that went well beyond the individual. Just watch one example of how our metaphysical approach to this impacted on our behavior. So the whole understanding of cosmology in an African sense, how we are here, how we got here, then leads to the creation of the links that hold us together as people, and the value system as a whole, the worldview and approach to life, as well as, of course, the mythology and the mythography around it, the folklore, the myths. All these are rich in feathering our relationship as people with the environment and the higher spirits. So those are the facts that I want to leave with you today, and I'll be back shortly with analysis and conclusion. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the analysis segment of this episode 17, where we're discussing African metaphysics and its impact on African knowledge systems. So I think the starting point is the realization that, and the literature is full of examples of how Africans, before slavery and colonization, actually were moving at a very steady, normal pace in advancing its civilization. And after all, that's what civilization is about. It's a gradual improvement in the knowledge base and moving into the unknown and exploring and discovering and experiencing new things. So the challenge we have today is that due to what I would call cultural genocide, and actually we could say colonization was attempted cultural genocide. But today, I would say, because we Africans are struggling to get out of the residual effects of that almost total annihilation of our culture, we now ourselves are committing cultural suicide because we're not doing enough to get out of it. And the reason why it's so difficult, in fact, there are two main reasons. The first is what I'll call path dependency. So as Africans, we know very well through experience that some of the knowledge systems are irrelevant, completely out of touch with circumstances and reality on the ground. And you can go through the whole gamut of life. Take the education system. We know it's irrelevant. Textbooks are all based on European experiences, and the educational system does not prepare a young African for life in Africa. It prepares one for life somewhere else. But why do we still go back into the same schools and same educational system? Path dependency. Even though we know it's defective, we have no other system. So we end up going back and dependent on the same path that is deformed. That's the first major reason why we're not transforming our systems and our knowledge systems fast enough. The second reason is fear, because colonization's main strategy for destroying African culture is fear, the manufacturing of fear in every sphere of African life. And they start with your own belief systems around your religion. They take it away, they steal your God, and they replace it with their God. And then they instill so much fear in the people that you end up believing their God, not because you really know this God or you really think it's gonna bring spiritual redemption, but it's the fear of not believing what the master tells you that continues to send you back. And you know, there's just one golden rule in knowledge. In knowledge, you have just one test to know whether you've got genuine knowledge or not. If a topic or an issue, anything surfaced, instills fear in you, you're not able to discuss it, you're not able to question it, then you know it's mostly a lie. There may be some half-truth in it, but it's mostly a lie. Because the truth liberates. I mean, the truth wants to come out clear, crystal clear. The truth wants you to question because it's the truth, but there's no truth that makes you so fearful that you don't question it and you still call it the truth. That's how we were colonized, through the manufacture of fear. So metaphysics is the place where new ideas are manufactured in any civilization. Because metaphysical phenomena is the cutting edge between the known and the unknown, the explainable and the unexplainable. This is where imagination comes in. This is where tacit knowledge is located. This is where new forms of knowing are co-created between the known and the unknown. And African metaphysics is the archetypical base on which Africans directly interacted with their environment in order to create and understand new ways of relating to circumstances. So there's no need to get stuck on European forms of metaphysics because they limit us in what we ultimately can be and what our potential is as Africans. As I've explained earlier in the facts, African metaphysics has actually brought Africans to a better understanding of life than the Eurocentrics. African metaphysics has brought Africans a better human-oriented culture because it enhances a more sustainable relationship with the environment. It codifies within one's conscience a respect for life, respect for the environment. And the behavioral code is one that is instilled within an individual, not something enforced externally through the law and police force. And we know that the Western world is crumbling at family and community level because there's hundreds and hundreds of laws and thousands of police carrying guns and all manner of, I'll call them arsenals of mass destruction. But you still have family violence and chaos. You still have people being massacred in classrooms, in civilizations which are supposed to be advanced. Well, that was unthinkable when Africans were heavily bonded by our deeper feelings and understanding. So it's the schizophrenia that we experience today. We don't know whether we are Europeans or Africans. That's what I mean by metaphysical schizophrenia. In my analysis, I see that as the basis of the bulk of our problems, because the moment you doubt who you are, the moment you're guilty about what you believe, you are done. You can be as educated as they come on paper, but transforming the world will be difficult because you lack the confidence. You lack what it takes to believe in oneself at an individual and at a collective level. So you can go into the literature today, you'll find that Western philosophers and thinkers never really fully understood African metaphysics. They look down upon it. They don't understand it. And sometimes because it's not written down in their form of books, they are not able to study it and figure it out and actually realize that it was much more advanced than Western understanding of metaphysical phenomena. Actually, one realizes that Western philosophers and thinkers downgrade African forms of thinking and knowing and believing so much that they literally think that it's not possible for Africans to develop advanced philosophies and advanced systems of logical thinking and application to life. So there we are. That's my analysis. We have to resuscitate belief in our own metaphysical base, as I say, because that's where the unknown meets the known. That's where high levels of imagination and intuition allow a people to interrogate the unknown. And the unknown is where new ideas are. If a people don't have means to interrogate the unknown, you are done. Your civilization is dead. So that's my analysis, and I'll be back shortly with the conclusions. Welcome back. We're just concluding on this episode 17, where we are looking at African knowledge systems and how metaphysical phenomena is key to any knowledge system, and how for Africa, it was the most dynamic and rich approach to life. We have demonstrated that what the world lacks today in terms of peace, harmony, mutually beneficial relationships across nations, mutual respect across cultures, and so forth, and the ability to govern ourselves globally, that capacity for mutual responsibility is gone, is going. And yet, deep in African metaphysics were all the key ingredients that allowed African culture to understand humanness and understand how to craft cultural systems and processes that bring people together, that share, because a lot of the most valuable gifts of life are free and have to be shared. But this ability to understand that we are part of the environment, not above it, we have to live in harmony with it. But the way to do it is to fully integrate ourselves into the environment and understand how we are totally at one with the environment. Start figuring out the relationships that you cannot figure out through science and experimental research alone. That's where African metaphysics brings us back to today. We have to bring back the capacity of Africans to believe in ourselves, to go and question the unknown through interrogation, through participation, through immersion into life and the environment in ways that bring out that tacit knowledge that is hidden otherwise, to bring out new images and new forms of creativity and imagination that can never come through ordinary science and experimentation. This is where understanding of life as a whole resides, because Africans, in terms of metaphysical belief systems, always ended up trying to understand life as a whole. You can understand it in bits and pieces, but at the end of the day, to really truly understand it in full, the sum of individual parts are way less than the sum of the whole, because that's how Africans could co-create a new forms of understanding, not just of relationships with the environment, but relationships amongst people, behavior systems, and so on and so forth. So thank you for listening. The reason why African metaphysics and its relationship to African knowledge systems is so important is that is probably 80% or more of the mindset change that Africans have to go through. This is where we have to reasset ourselves as the most human people on this planet, reasset ourselves as the most creative people on this planet. There's absolutely no doubt that Africans, when they are not in bondage of being intellectually suppressed, of being spiritually suppressed, of being enslaved, of being looked down upon, of being discriminated against every part of the planet, you will see African genius surfacing all the time. Where governments and institutions are not able to suppress them, you will see Africans individually excelling in almost every field of endeavor, because it doesn't matter how poor materially an African is. They are loaded with extrasensory perception, with a oneness with nature, oneness, with humankind. An advanced African civilization is going to come from the continued expansion of this interrogation of the field of the unknown, because it is in that field of the unknown that new ideas are going to come from. That is where a most advanced, beautiful, advanced African society is going to come from, the kind of breath of fresh air that the whole world misses now. So thanks for listening, and see you again in the next segment. Thank you. Bye.